Welcome back. Tough times don't last, and we're going to talk about how to lead in times of adversity. And it's brought to us today by Untitled, our national gold sponsor. So to get started, let me introduce our esteemed panel. Firstly, Paul Cahill. He leads up the contact centre and CX function at Avant Mutual and has previously held customer strategy leadership positions at Auscontact and CUA. With more than 27 years' experience in contact centre leadership, Paul is a thought leader and advocate for customer experience transformation, having delivered multiple successful contact centre technology and transformation projects, including leading the merging of channels and sentiment tracking and analysis. Next, I'd like to welcome Andrew Porter. Andrew is a CX executive with extensive experience leading transformation programs at scale. He is currently the Commercial Operations Director at Domain Group and formerly COO of Publishing at Fairfax Media. Andrew has spent the last decade at the forefront of digital disruption. He has led CX transformations across contact centre operations, sales, technology and organisational design. And last but not least, Cameron Adams. Cameron is the Director of Solutions Consulting at NICE, leading the solution consulting team responsible for designing globally, leading technology solutions for critical business and customer experience challenges. He has over 15 years' experience in contact centre operations, project delivery and technology as both a customer and a vendor. Cameron brings a wealth of experience to the panel. So with that, welcome everyone. So why don't we kick off with a question, and the first person that we're going to ask to answer is going to be Paul. So the question is, if you had to reflect on the year that was, and 2020 was a big year for everyone, what were your key learnings and highlights? We'll go Paul, then Andrew, and then Cam.
Yeah, what a crazy year, what a crazy time. Who would have thought and predicted that we'd end up here this year, pandemic land? Well, what have we learned? I think certainly we busted the myth of work from home as a performance risk. Over the years, I've had work from home, and it's always up for debate with the executive and so on, the views of the organisation. I think definitely this year, as we've forced to send our contact centres out into the world and out into the wild and have them all work from home, we've really seen, from me and people I speak with, no impact on performance. In fact, if anything, improvements to a lot of our performance outcomes. So certainly I think that's been a massive change in how we view work from home. The other one for me, and probably a little bit closer to home, is I've had to use Teams and Zoom for the first time this year. We've used Skype over the years, but not forever, which is always have a pair of wired earphones on standby. That saved my bacon on more than one occasion.
So Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. And my only hesitation in reflecting on 2020 is it's not over yet. So we still have a month to go. So fingers crossed, nothing new. But look, highlights for me, similar to Paul's sentiments, really. It's how fast the workforce adapts to remote learning and remote working. And I think keeping engagement of the workforce across your contact centre high is going to be, the key to making this sustainable, this new normal that people talk about. And that's really what's setting apart, in my observation, the leaders and the managers, who's a leader versus who's a manager in your contact centre. And that's really come to the fore with the changes in work environment. And being able to deliver excellent experiences anywhere is really the key to survive in this new normal that we're in now. And my only tip as well, similar one to Paul's as well, is if you can default all your meetings to 15 minutes rather than half an hour, and it makes the day, transforms the day. That was fantastic when we did that internally.
Thank you. Cam?
Hello. Yes, what a year. And as you say, Andrew, it's not over yet. So yeah, let's hang in there and see what else we get delivered up as surprises this year. I think from our point of view, it's been fascinating to see, you know, all of our customers go through this kind of shared adversity and the sorts of lessons that have been learned around the world as people have been trying to adapt to this kind of situation. A couple of really interesting things that I think we've seen around the place has been that customer service is actually a really critical part of business continuity, we've learned. I think just how central that function is to having an effective business continuity plan wasn't quite so obvious until this unfolded, and there was a recognition that absolutely everyone needed to call their banks and sort themselves out with mortgages. They needed to change things about the way that their telco works so they could work from home effectively. I mean, there are just so many reasons why getting in touch with your the organisations that serve you is critical in a period like this. So, you know, customer service is super key to business continuity. And we also learned, I think, together that what we perceived as the speed limits that kept us, you know, held back could actually be shattered when push came to shove. And I think organisations we work with recognised that they could move a whole lot more quickly than they thought. And indeed, we did as well as a vendor. You know, last year when I was presenting to prospects, I would talk about how, on average, we would turn up a contact centre in 60 days. Well, in the first half of this year in Australia, we turned up 20 contact centres, each within 48 hours. We didn't know that we could do that. You know, likewise, so many organisations that might have taken 2 years to get a work from home strategy in place have learned, I can do that a bit quicker than I thought. So, yeah, it's been an interesting year.
Thanks, Cam. So let's ask the next question, which is something that I'm often asked myself, but I'm particularly interested in all of your responses. So what do you think the future of work holds for the contact centre industry? What are your organisations seeing, and how do you think contact centres will approach remote working in the future? And I think I'm supposed to throw to you first, Paul.
Great, me again.
You again.
Look, I guess, you know, again, what I've seen is, you know, when this first hit, a lot of businesses that had offshore contact centres, 100% offshore contact centres were caught out as the offshore environment weren't able to mobilise to work from home as quickly. I definitely think we'll see that trend continuing as businesses just reevaluate their risk and business continuity, as Cameron said. Having a better mix is certainly going to be, I think, more on the radar as we move forward. The work from home certainly has really escalated what we always knew would be an opportunity to now being almost a part of how we'll work moving forward. For our organisation, we're looking at 2 to 3 days a week as how we will work in future, and the opportunity cost of you know, CBD floor space, it's not cheap, and being able to release some of that back. And certainly from an engagement perspective, then that conversation then comes to then how will we better enable our employees to work from home? What additional things can we give them to make that experience even better?
Thanks, Paul. Cam, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've all done hard yards to be able to work from wherever we like. And, you know, it's been out of sheer necessity, of course. And, you know, we haven't exactly been working from home in this time. As I've heard someone say, we've been trying to work from home during a crisis. But we're moving back soon to a little bit more normality in this country, I hope. And, you know, those hard yards that we've done technologically, organisationally, culturally, to be able to adapt to this way of working, I think most of the people that I talk to don't want to see that effort wasted and see the benefits, as you said, Paul, of, you know, the productivity issue is just not an issue. as it turns out. And having learned that, I think we're going to see these new practices here to stay. As you say, floor space is expensive. There's very few organisations that I talk to who are thinking about going all the way back to how things were before. It's just not looking like being the case.
Cool. Andrew?
Yeah, certainly, I mean, remote working is a given. It will be a differentiator for all companies in the battle for, I think, key talent, particularly in the contact center space over the years ahead. And certainly when we talk internally with Domain and with other companies in the industry across digital, we can see organisations already moving to declare their future operating model. Whether that's, come into the office once a fortnight and meet for your contact center team meetings and work from home the rest of the time, or 2 days or 4 days, whatever it might be. I guess in terms of the future of work and specifically your question, I think the operating model will become a key differentiator, and that'll just be part of how the contact center is marketed to key talent. And that's going to be, I think, really, really important getting that right. Coming out of this, because we can see a lot of organisations already declaring what their operating model will be to try and drive some certainty in that, and that helps get people over the line again in that battle for employees. So I think that'll be the trend moving forward.
Thanks, Andrew. So Cam, the next question is just for you. Aren't you lucky? So I know, nothing like being put on the spot. What trends are you and your team seeing in the market? And what are the key areas that the industry is focusing on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Andrew, I think I agree that that's one of the trends that I'm seeing as well, is that, I think the way of working or the way of operating is, going to be a bigger differentiator and is a strong reflection of organisations' culture and their view on how they want people to relate to one another. And so I totally agree that's a really, really important trend. I think, the pandemic has served to accelerate some trends that existed before, to the point around risk with offshore operations and kind of changing ways that we communicate as well. We've seen a really massive acceleration in a focus on digital transformation in the contact center. So almost every organisation that I talk to is exploring with more urgency than before things like authenticated in-app asynchronous messaging to be able to engage with customers at the time and place of their choosing, and trying to grapple with the questions of how do we blend these digital channels into our contact center in a way that works not just from a kind of contact handling point of view, but also even from all of the supporting functions like, quality management, insights into people's contacts, connecting up the customer journey, managing the workforce effectively with a blended mix of contact types. So we see much more, I suppose, broad thinking on digital as well, beyond just how do I get people connected through messaging to how's that actually going to work in the big picture. So, yeah, I mean, there are a couple of key trends that I've seen.
Thanks, Cam. And I guess one of the keys underpinning that is the consideration of moving to cloud technology. Because let's face it, it's got to underpin our future, as a number of us are going to remain working remotely. So I wanted to be very pointed with Andrew, and I'm sorry, Andrew, it's your turn to be put on the spot. A lot of centres have considered moving to cloud platforms for their contact centres. Why did you decide to go to CX1 at Fairfax, and what were the benefits?
Well, as many people would know, Fairfax and the media industry more broadly has been impacted by digital disruption for a long time. So, the pandemic came along this year in a different context and impacted businesses more broadly. But Fairfax has been, and the media industry has been at the forefront of digital disruption for a long time. grappling with massive changes in revenues, and there's really been no industry that's been more disrupted than media, I don't think, in the last 20 years. And in that context, really what we needed in a platform was flexibility, because and organisations I've worked in the past, you come in and you do a business case and you think about, okay, what's our contact centre going to look like for the next 1 to 3, maybe even 3 to 5 years. Let's put together a business case and plan and select a platform that meets those needs. At Fairfax, we couldn't plan more than 6 months ahead. Things were changing so constantly. So that's the number one thing is flexibility, to be able to adapt to the changing needs of the business. And I think within that, having, all the, world-class features that we all come to expect. And I think just being able to respond at speed to whatever change in the operating model that we might need. That were probably the key reasons we looked at cloud.
Thanks, Andrew. And same question for you, Paul. Why CX1 at Avant Mutual?
We had a strategy of moving all of our systems architecture to cloud. At the time we had 3 separate tech for call recording, telephony and workforce management. And of course, other things such as doing QA on Excel spreadsheets and so on, we've all done for many years. Moving to CX1 was an opportunity to bring all of those features into the one cloud-based platform. And as timing has it, we only migrated earlier this year, and interestingly enough, I think went live just before March. So really helped enable us in terms of work from home. But the benefits of having all of the features in the one platform, of course, for those that have had those IT issues in the past, it's always it's that platform or that one. There's always that uncertainty about which platform might be causing the issue. Now you've got it all sitting in one place, and it's a much neater solution. It's a much, the cost to ownership is much cheaper, because you are now talking about only having to have one set of support in place. And for us, I think about our QAs moved into the CX1 platforms, but team leaders and contact center manager could not be happier with that arrangement. It saved a whole bunch of effort and really led to an increase in the quality of the conversations we're having. We're now starting to play with the sentiment analytics tools within the platform. So yeah, look, I think as we grow with it, the benefits are exceeding the initial decision making, which was really just a kind of more of an IT decision. So the business has certainly seen a lot of benefits already, and more to come.
Thanks, Paul. We've got one more question to go, but it's quite a vexed question, I think. With so much change, especially around COVID, some organisations are unsure of how to prepare and react. So I'm going to ask each of you, what's your advice for leaders that might be holding off on ambitious, costly, time-consuming business transformations during this uncertain time? And Andrew, I'm going to throw to you first on this one.
Okay. Yeah. My number one point would be, you never waste a crisis, as everyone knows. And I mean, in this kind of environment, I find just from my own experience in talking to people in similar positions, is you can get 3 to 5 years of transformation, whether it's in culture or technology or operating model, happen in, rather than 3 to 5 years, it can happen in 3 to 5 months. And it's just because of the change in dynamics in the environment. So I wouldn't waste this opportunity, because, as a specific example, we've just completed major people and tech transformation in our sales team at Domain, right in the middle of COVID, to set ourselves up for the recovery kind of coming out. And I think the winners in the long run in this situation are the people who are, or the organisations that are poised to take advantage of the, whether it's V-shaped or U-shaped, whatever shape it is. We will come out of this crisis, and it's, I guess, who has their pieces in order. You don't want to be doing that after we've come out. So I would definitely say don't hold off. And one point that I forgot to mention on the previous question, if I can, is just to say, when we implemented CX1, it enabled us to onshore our contact center and take control of our customer experience, and we were able to offset increased labour costs, having onshore staff with the efficiencies we gained with that platform. And having that done, I guess, positions us, when, moving forward with control of the customer experience. And times like this crisis now are a great example where I think if you're thinking about it, this is the time to take control and own your customer experience, if that's in line with your company's strategy.
Thanks, Andrew. And I'm pretty sure that most companies' strategy would be around customer experience as the number one. Paul, your thoughts? Do we need courage?
Did you say do we need courage? Certainly, absolutely. Take a leap of faith. Well, it's inevitable. It's almost inevitable that if you don't change, you're going to be left behind, even without COVID. And as I reflect back to, last year we were in the midst of, 1 in 100-year droughts, and then we hit the 1 in 100-year bushfires and level of fires, and then we've moved into COVID, and now we're about to hit, I see, especially in Sydney, if you're in Sydney, they had to let some of the water out, and other dams full again, and predicting that we're going to get too much rain. And, these environmental, I know they're environmental and they're external factors, but these are the things that are going to hit. If your business isn't in a, I guess, change preparedness or in a view that you can move forward constantly, you will be left. I think it's not necessary to have big investments. It is necessary to have big ambition. It is necessary to, as I said, be courageous, and it's certainly going to be imperative that you are connected with your workforce and your people. I've seen many a transformation investment being focused around technology only to fail because the people didn't buy into the change. So certainly right now, if you're not already thinking about the changes or whatever it is you're doing, certainly make sure that you are positioning your business units and your wider businesses to be more agile and more responsive.
Thank you. Cam, your thoughts?
I just so agree with you, Paul. I think, that CX agility is the new factor that needs to be in place to be able to cope with this increasing pace of change and all these things that are happening. And I think, it's absolutely right to be ambitious, as you say. I think, though, costly and time-consuming might not necessarily be the characteristics of a modern technology transformation, because moving to cloud and, even though it's kind of just it seems like it's just a change in where infrastructure is or whatever, it's actually a fundamental change in the way that you can execute on transformations as well. You don't have to bite the entire elephant at once. You can iterate, and you can pick, the right parts of your business to execute targeted transformations, and over time, in an agile and iterative way, end up unlocking yourself from, the constraints of your existing technology and enable innovation at a pace that simply wasn't possible before, as you consume the innovation from your cloud providers and, focus on innovating in your own business. It's just a real step change. So I think what we'll see is a massive focus on agility, as you say, Paul, and that will be about consuming innovation as a service from cloud providers, I think, and that's what's going to help organisations not fall behind.
Yeah, look, I'd have to agree. We know historically that contact centres are probably the most dynamic parts of anyone's organisation. We're known for being on a constant change cycle. But you're so right. Now it's not the time to sit on your hands and wonder what might have been. I think the approach of being agile and iterative in your approach is absolutely bang on the money, because you learn and you build and you build and you build, and you can manage your customer outcomes and the outcomes on your employees as well, which is absolutely critical when they're in this constant change wheel or on this constant change wheel. It's really important. Well, I can't believe that we're nearly at time, and I've really enjoyed the breadth and depth of the discussion. I hope you enjoyed being grilled around what your respective stories are. I've enjoyed your company so much. So with that, huge thank you to Andrew, Paul and Cameron, and in particular, thank you to our National Gold sponsor, NICE, for bringing these gentlemen to us today.